Imagine being 10 years old and your parents drop you off at your grandma's and never come back. No explanation, no calls, no questions about how you're doing. Then years later, they show up like nothing ever happened, and they want a fresh start. This isn't fiction. This is my story. All right, so this isn't really something I normally do, but I feel like I need to get this off my chest. Lately, I've been feeling like I'm barely holding it together just thinking about it all again. And what really messes with my head is how everyone acts like it was no big deal, like everything was completely fine. So, I don't know. I guess this is my story. I was 10 years old. I remember it clearly. It was one of those summer days where the sun feels way too bright, almost like it's showing off. My mom was acting unusually cheerful, which instantly felt off. She's never been the bubbly type, more the quiet but sarcastic kind. And my dad wasn't much different. He kept cracking bad jokes and nudging me like he was trying way too hard to be funny or lighthearted. We were on our way to my grandma's place, music blasting on the radio. That stuck with me because my mom kept telling my dad to lower the volume, then reaching over to do it herself, like she always had to be the one in control. What's strange is, I wasn't even supposed to be at grandma's that day. It felt so last minute, out of nowhere. I only had my backpack with me, just my tablet, a charger, and a hoodie. No clothes, no toothbrush, none of my usual stuff. We pulled up to grandma's house and my dad said, "Go ahead, we'll be in soon." I walked up and grandma was already standing in the doorway. She didn't look ready for them. Or maybe she was, but it still felt awkward, like something wasn't quite right. They barely said hello, just mumbled something about running a few errands and that they'd be back. My mom kept shooting grandma these strange looks, and grandma just gave little shrugs in return. No one was saying anything that actually meant anything. I didn't question it. I was 10. I just figured, adults do weird stuff sometimes. They'd be back. So I sat on the couch, watching grandma do her crossword puzzle. She kept asking me if I wanted a snack. Every now and then, I'd glance out the window at the driveway, half expecting their car to show up. At first, I tried to distract myself, played games on my tablet, tried not to overthink, but when the sky got dark and they still weren't back, I finally asked Grandma, "When are they coming?" She'd just smile softly, pat my hand, and say, "Soon. Any day now." That first night, I slept in her guest room, though it was more like a storage space with an old twin bed shoved in the corner. I kept waking up thinking I heard a car outside. That whole first week, I was convinced they'd walk through the door any minute. I kept pestering Grandma, and every time, she'd just let out a sigh and say, "They'll be back. You'll see." But she never looked me in the eye when she said it. A couple weeks later, school started. We had to use Grandma's address for everything. She bought me a lunchbox with puppies on it, and yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. But I didn't say anything. At school, the teachers would ask, "When are your parents picking you up?" And I'd just say they were busy, which I guess was technically true, but not really, not in any way that mattered. The other kids didn't really understand what was going on. One girl, Taryn, kept asking who I lived with now. I told her, my grandma, for now. And she just nodded like that was totally normal. I tried texting my mom using grandma's old flip phone, but she never responded. My dad's number would just ring and ring. Once in a while, grandma would get actual letters from them. Yeah, real paper letters, which already felt outdated, even back then. I recognized my mom's handwriting. And my dad, he'd still write his corny little jokes in the margins. They always said they were sorting things out and that they'd be back soon, but nothing ever changed. Sometimes at night, I'd hear grandma whispering on the phone. I knew it was my mom. I could hear her voice, soft and muffled. One night I caught a bit of it. Grandma said, "She's asking about you," and then, "I know, but she's your daughter." After those calls, grandma would seem worn out. She'd get strict about bedtime like she didn't have the energy for anything else. People think being abandoned is some dramatic, earth-shattering event. But most of the time, it's just silence. Boring, empty silence. You wait, and wait, and wait, and nothing happens. No one explains anything. You just start filling in the blanks yourself, making up stories to cope. I kept telling myself this was temporary, that any minute they'd come walking back through the door, But even then, deep down, I knew something was really wrong. Grandma did what she could. I mean, she was old and had her own life to manage. She tried cooking my favorite meals, though she always got the recipe slightly wrong. She wasn't mean or anything, just didn't really know how to be around a kid. If I forgot to do my chores or left my shoes lying around, she'd snap at me. Then a few hours later, she'd feel guilty and offer me candy. She had her own group of friends, older ladies she played bingo with. Sometimes they'd come over, sit in the kitchen laughing and gossiping. I'd just be in my room, gaming or scrolling on my tablet, feeling completely invisible. I remember about a year later, I finally worked up the nerve to ask again, when are they coming back? Grandma just looked at me and said, you know I don't have that answer. And that was it. I didn't bring it up again for a long time. The only times I saw their names were on birthday cards. And even those were weird. They'd say stuff like, hope to see you soon, love, mom and dad, and toss a $20 bill inside. Eventually, I just stopped opening them, left them sitting in a drawer. Sometimes my Aunt Cheryl would call and ask if I wanted to spend the night at her place. But honestly, it always felt like she was just doing it to keep Grandma happy, like she wanted something in return. I stayed over once, but her kids were way younger than me, and the whole thing was just dull. Nobody asked how I was really doing, just whether I was behaving for Grandma. At school, I started getting into trouble over small stuff, talking back, not turning in homework. I remember in 5th grade, my teacher pulled me aside and said I was acting out. I just shrugged. What was I supposed to say? I never told anyone what had really happened. Instead, I started making things up. I'd say my parents were working out of town or that they had moved for a job. People didn't buy it, not really. But nobody cared enough to press me on it either. I got pretty good at sidestepping questions or brushing things off with a laugh. I started hanging out with kids who didn't ask too many personal questions. We'd skate behind the library or sit around talking about random stuff. I told them I lived with my grandma because my parents were going through some things, which technically was true. But sometimes someone would push a little too hard and I'd snap. I remember one time I shoved this kid Milo into a bush because he kept cracking jokes about my mystery parents. He didn't talk to me for a week after that. Nobody told on me, but I still got called into the office. The counselor asked if everything was okay at home, and I just said I was tired. That was enough. They didn't ask more. So that's kind of how life went for the next few years. Just me and Grandma. Her house full of old furniture that smelled like mothballs, lace doilies on every surface. Me doing homework at the kitchen table. Her making soup that always tasted like onions, no matter what kind it was. The only real arguments we had were about chores or if I forgot to call her when I stayed out too long. Sometimes I'd snap and say I wanted to go home, to my real home, and she'd just say, "This is your home now." I hated hearing that. I started spending more and more time online, just endlessly scrolling, watching dumb videos, texting people I barely knew. That's when it really started to hit me. This was my life now. Nobody was coming back. I'd see photos my friends posted with their families, and I'd realize just how off track my life had gone compared to theirs. I tried bringing it up with Grandma, suggesting maybe we call my parents, but she'd just shake her head and say, "They'll call when they're ready," like it was all on them. Sometimes I'd get so angry, I'd just walk around the block to cool off. A few times I didn't come back until after it got dark. Grandma would be waiting by the door, arms crossed, and she'd say, "You scared me," then quietly go back to her shows. I knew she cared, even if she never really said it out loud. There was this one time, I must have been 12, when my mom actually called. Grandma passed me the phone, and my mom was super awkward, asking about school and saying she missed me. All I said was, "Okay." Then she told me she'd see me soon. But of course, she never did. After that, I stopped expecting anything. I started telling people my parents had moved away and couldn't take me with them. Weirdly enough, that story worked better than the "they're traveling for work" one. And that's kind of how it all began. People always think there's this one dramatic moment when you realize you've been abandoned. But really, it's just a series of tiny, forgettable moments. Like nobody showing up for parent-teacher night, or waiting alone after practice and never getting picked up. Eventually, you just stop asking. The last time I asked Grandma when they were coming back, she gave the usual answer. Any day now. But this time she didn't even pretend to believe it. And I knew in that exact moment that she was lying, that no one was coming. So, I don't even care anymore. That's part one, I guess. If anyone out there actually cares, there's more to this story. First update, not gonna lie, I didn't think I'd really post part two, but here we are. I don't even know if this will make sense to people who grew up in normal families. But this is what happened. I might ramble, just a heads up. So, 2021. Grandma's health had been slipping for a while, even before the pandemic hit. But that year, everything took a turn. She was in and out of the hospital constantly, one issue after another. Every time I asked if we should let my parents know, she'd wave me off, saying not to bother them. I was 19 at that point, handling most of the responsibilities at home, paying bills, buying groceries, making appointments. But everyone just assumed I was okay because I acted like I had it together. Lol. Some of my friends slowly drifted away, maybe because I never had time to hang out, or maybe I stopped reaching out. The house was painfully quiet at night, just the buzz of the TV in the background and Grandma asleep in her recliner. Sometimes she'd wake up confused and call me by my mom's name. I know that's probably not super important, but it felt strange. Like, even when you're the only one left, you're still not really seen. When Grandma passed, it was just the two of us at home. I was the one who found her. I called Aunt Cheryl, and she took care of telling everyone else. The funeral was weird. The weather was way too nice, sunny with this weird breeze. And all I could think about was how Grandma would have scolded me for not wearing a jacket. I felt this mix of anger and numbness, like I wanted to cry and scream and sleep all at the same time. But mostly I just felt blank. All I really wanted was to get through the day, just survive it. And then, out of nowhere, my parents actually showed up. I hadn't seen them in years. No visits, no real calls, just the occasional birthday card or a generic text that felt like it could have been meant for anyone. I was standing near the front of the small chapel, just waiting for people to start filtering in. I looked up, and there she was. My mom. She looked pretty much the same, just older. Tired. Behind her was my dad, holding a huge bundle of flowers like he didn't know what else to do with his hands. They both tried to play it off like this was just a regular family gathering, like it was normal. My mom walked up to me with her arms out, clearly expecting a hug. I stepped back. She froze mid-step, and suddenly the air felt heavy with silence. My dad gave this half-hearted shrug like, "What do you want us to do?" Aunt Cheryl was shooting daggers at them with her eyes, but she kept quiet. Other relatives were already whispering, probably about how tense everything felt. My cousin Lila came over, doing that fake concern thing, asking if I was okay. But it was obvious she just wanted the inside scoop on whatever drama was going down. I just told her I was fine and walked off to check the food table. The whole service was a blur. People stood up and said things about Grandma, how strong she was, how deeply she loved her family. And the whole time I couldn't stop thinking about how much weight she carried that wasn't hers to begin with. All the stuff my parents dumped on her. My parents sat all the way in the back, didn't talk to anyone. After the service, people started milling around, eating cookies, making small talk because no one knew what else to do. My mom tried to approach me again. She put her hand on my shoulder gently. I looked straight at her and asked, "Why did you abandon me?" She didn't say a word, just stared down at her shoes. My dad mumbled something about them having their reasons, but he couldn't even bring himself to meet my eyes. That's when things started spiraling. Aunt Cheryl jumped in. "You have no right to show up like this after all these years." My mom tried to defend herself, saying she'd always been thinking about me. Cheryl just let out this dry laugh like, "Yeah, okay." One of the older relatives, I think her name was Doreen, stepped in, saying, "This isn't the time or place." My mom looked like she might break down, but honestly, I just felt irritated. The conversation got louder. My dad tried to say they never meant for any of this to happen, that it wasn't supposed to turn out this way. Cheryl wasn't having it. She yelled back that Grandma deserved better. And then my mom, of course, made it about herself, said it had been hard on them, like they were the ones who got left behind. I walked away, went outside and stood in the parking lot, staring at my phone but not really seeing anything. I heard a door slam behind me, probably Cheryl. Then I heard Lila calling my name, but I didn't answer. She followed me out and asked if I wanted to come back inside. I told her I just needed air. A few other people came out too, trying to be comforting, but mostly there was just this awkward silence. Eventually, my parents came outside and stood by their car. They didn't look sure whether they should stay or go. My mom kept glancing over like she was waiting for me to say something. Finally, she came over and tried one more time to hug me. I stepped back. Again. She looked crushed, but I didn't feel bad. My dad said, "We should talk." "You're old enough now." I asked, "Talk about what?" He didn't answer. Just looked at her, and she said it, that they did what they thought was best, that they weren't ready, that living with grandma was the better option. I asked, "How is leaving your own kid behind the best option for anyone?" She didn't respond, just wiped her eyes and turned away. People started heading out, saying goodbye, giving me those awkward, half-hearted hugs that say, "I don't really want to get involved." Aunt Cheryl pulled me aside and told me I didn't have to talk to them if I didn't want to, that I had every right to be angry. She said she always believed what they did was wrong, but nobody wanted to create a huge family fight. I nodded. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. By the time most people had left, my parents were still out there, standing by their car. Eventually, my mom got in and slammed the door shut. My dad lingered for a moment, then climbed in too. They drove off. Later that evening, while I was cleaning up, Lila was on her phone, scrolling through photos people had posted from the funeral. She acted like it was just another social event, like she couldn't understand why I was upset. I told her to stop. She shrugged and said she was just trying to help. I saw a new text from my mom. "Hey, sweetie, been thinking about you?" I didn't reply. Over the next few days, messages kept rolling in. Calls, DMs, people checking in, asking if I was okay. But none of it went deeper than the surface. Nobody asked what I actually needed. Aunt Cheryl offered to let me stay with her, but I told her I was fine staying at Grandma's house. She said I was stubborn. Just like your mom. The house feels so empty now. Just me and all the things Grandma left behind. I still catch myself expecting her to yell from the other room about the lights being left on. My parents didn't call again. No texts either. Weeks went by in silence. And the strangest part? How everyone else acted like it was just some typical family drama. You'd hear things like, "Families are complicated," or "You'll work it out eventually." But no one actually wanted to hear the truth. They didn't want the detail. They just wanted the discomfort to go away so they wouldn't have to pick a side. I started going through Grandma's things, old photos, handwritten letters, random little bits and pieces stuffed in drawers like she couldn't let anything go. I found cards from my parents, but they were addressed to her, thanking her for helping out. Not a single word about me. One day I ran into our old neighbor Curtis at the store. He asked if my parents were back in town. I told him no. They had only come for the funeral. He gave me that look, the one where someone clearly wants to ask more, but doesn't. I kept getting reminded in little ways that I was alone now. Bills would show up in the mailbox. The fridge would be empty. Something in the house would break. I fixed what I could, watched YouTube videos for the rest. Sometimes Aunt Cheryl would swing by, mostly just to drop off groceries or leftover casseroles. Then she'd leave. I started getting angry, not just at my parents, but at everyone who stood by and pretended this was all somehow okay. I'd snap at Lila over nothing, ignore messages, leave group chats on read. My parents never came back. But then, a few weeks later, I got a text from my mom. "Can we please talk?" Just once. I deleted it. So yeah, that's how the funeral ended. Everyone acting like things had changed when nothing actually had. If you've read this far, maybe you're wondering what happened when they tried reaching out again. That's its own mess. I'll share it if anyone cares. But honestly, I'm tired. Second update. Still me, Marin. If you've made it through the first two parts, then you probably already get that I don't do tidy endings or clean-cut narratives. There's no grand moment of closure here. This is just what happened. Messy, unfiltered, real. So, 2022. A year after the funeral. Grandma's scent still lingers in the house, like old powder, dry paper, and soup that simmered too long on the stove. I stayed living there because, honestly, where else was I going to go? And let's be real, this whole adulting thing, yeah, it's not half as fun or liberating as TikTok makes it look. I was barely keeping up with the bills, still fighting with Cheryl off and on. She started acting like she was my mom, but not in the nurturing way. More like, are you eating right? Did you pay the water bill? Why are you still up at midnight? Then she'd ghost me for 3 days straight. Anyway, after months of radio silence from my mom, just a few vague hope you're doing okay messages that I ignored, she suddenly started texting again. At first once a week, then every couple of days. Hey, sweetie, hope you're okay. Thinking of you. Can we talk? And then my dad joined in, but his tone was different, more blunt. We should talk. You can't avoid us forever. And for some reason, that made me angrier than being ignored. Now they wanted to act like they cared. Just because Grandma was gone and there was no one left to do the emotional heavy lifting, I kept ignoring them. But then Cheryl started pushing me, told me to just meet up with them. Get it over with, she said. Maybe then they'll leave you alone. Even Lila chimed in, said if it were her, she'd want answers. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore, but I was sick of being treated like the villain for not wanting to hear them out. So finally I caved. I texted my mom back, short and sharp. What do you want? She responded almost immediately, like she'd been holding her breath waiting. She said they just wanted to talk. Have dinner. Clear the air. I told her fine. Public place. 1 hour. That's it. She tried to convince me to come to their house. Apparently they had moved back. Or maybe they never left. Honestly, I didn't care. I told her, public or nothing. So we picked this generic chain restaurant, the kind with laminated menus and sticky tables that smell like syrup and mop water. I got there early on purpose. Didn't want to walk in and see them already sitting there, waiting for me. I picked a window seat and pretended to scroll through Twitter. Just endless doom scrolling to kill time. Then I saw their car pull up. My mom stepped out first, all dressed up like she was headed to a wedding. My dad followed behind, wearing the same shirt he probably had when I was 10. They walked in together, but not side by side. No hand-holding, no connection, just two people walking in the same direction. They spotted me and waved like this was some casual catch-up. My mom smiled and slid into the booth beside me. My dad took the seat across. She opened with, "You look so grown up." I just nodded. What was I supposed to say to that? The waitress came over. I ordered coffee. My dad got water. My mom asked if I wanted food. I told her I'd already eaten. She looked mildly offended for a second, then plastered on a smile again. What followed was the most awkward small talk ever. How's the house? How's school? Are you working? How's Cheryl? I gave short, clipped answers. Because honestly, I didn't owe them anything more than that. Eventually, I just say it. Why are we even here? My dad lets out this tired sigh and says they want to be a family again. I laugh. Maybe that was a little harsh, but I couldn't help it. I said, "You're about 10 years too late for that." My mom reaches over and puts her hand on mine. She says they made mistakes, but they always loved me. So I ask her straight up, "Then why did you leave me with Grandma and never come back?" She starts talking about how they thought it was the best thing for me, that they weren't ready, that things were hard. She talks about the stress, about how they used to fight constantly. Then she says it, that I was difficult. I almost choked, and their solution was to send me somewhere safe. I said, "So you just ditched me because I didn't fit into your life?" She says it wasn't like that, but she can't actually explain what it was like. Then my dad gets angry, says I don't understand what they were going through, that they were both working nonstop, fighting, barely surviving. He says Grandma was better equipped to raise a kid. I say, yeah, because she did. She raised me by herself while you two just, Quit being parents. He snaps back. You never saw how hard it was for us. And I tell him, you never saw how hard it was for me. That shuts him up for a moment. Then he says, you should be grateful. You had a roof over your head. I say, I would have been grateful for parents who didn't disappear. The silence after that, uncomfortable, heavy. My mom tries to shift gears and says, we're here now. We want to fix things. So I ask, why now? She says it's because grandma's gone and they realized how much time they lost. I say, so this isn't about me. It's about your guilt. My dad snaps, don't talk to your mother like that. And I fire back, or what? You'll vanish again? He slams his hand on the table. People start staring. The waitress rushes over, asking if everything's okay. My mom forces a smile and says, we're fine. Just family stuff. My dad looks like he's about to blow up, but he holds it in. I say, I'm not playing happy family just to make you two feel better. My mom says, you don't mean that. You're just angry. I say, no, I mean every word. She reaches out to touch my arm. I pull away. She looks hurt, but I'm done feeling bad about their feelings. My dad says, you're being cruel. I say, no, I'm just finally being honest. He stands up, says, you'll regret this someday. I say, maybe. But not as much as you should. He storms out. My mom just sits there, looking at me like she doesn't even recognize me. She says, please, can't we start over? I say, you didn't want me when I was a kid. Why do you want me now? She says, people change. I say, not enough. I stand up to leave. She grabs my sleeve. I shake her off. She pleads, don't go. But I walk away. I hear her crying behind me, but I don't feel anything. Just this deep, bone-deep exhaustion. For the next week, she sends long texts, apologies, regrets, more begging to talk. My dad sends one message. You broke your mother's heart. I block them both. Then they start messaging me on Instagram. Please, just one conversation. I don't respond. Lila stops by and tells me I'm being too harsh. I say, maybe, but it's my decision. She says, they're still your parents. I say, and I'm still their daughter. That didn't seem to matter to them for years. I start seeing some old friends from high school again, but it feels weird. People ask about my parents, because apparently everyone heard something at the funeral. I just tell them, we're not close. Some give me looks, like I'm the one in the wrong, like I'm supposed to fix this whole thing. I start noticing the little shifts. Cheryl treats me more like an adult now, but still nags me constantly. Lila stops coming around as much. I'm alone a lot. But honestly, it's not the worst thing. I get used to the quiet. I get used to just handling things. Then I get another letter, an actual handwritten one. My mom's handwriting. She says she's sorry. She says she loves me. She hopes I'll call. I think about it, but I don't. I start doing more for myself, fixing the leaky sink, learning how to budget, keeping the house running. Sometimes when I'm mad, I slam kitchen drawers, just like Grandma used to. Sometimes I text Cheryl something angry, then apologize later. Sometimes I just sit on the porch for hours, scrolling through TikTok without really watching. So yeah, that's how the second chance talk went. Not some magical fix, not some big reconciliation, but it's real. Not sure what happens next. But I guess that's part 3. If you're still curious, let me know. I can't promise it gets better, but I can promise it's honest. All right. So this is probably the last time I'll post about all of this. Honestly, I wasn't even sure if I should, but a few people DM'd and said it helped them. So here we are. If you're new, I'm Marin. You know who I am by now. The girl whose parents bailed when she was 10 and left her with grandma like I was some problem they didn't want to deal with. If you've read the earlier parts, you already know how they popped back into my life after grandma died, pretending like we were one big happy family just waiting to happen. It's been a year since that dinner, the one where they asked for a fresh start. If I'm being honest, nothing about it felt fresh, and it sure as hell didn't feel like a start. So here's what's happened since then. 2023 started off weird. I figured that once I blocked their numbers and ignored all their messages, they'd eventually give up. That's what they've always done best. Disappear. But no, they got creative. Instagram DMs. A random Facebook friend request from my dad, which was wild considering he used to complain nonstop about kids glued to their screens. The messages were always the same. Can we please talk just once? Sometimes longer ones, like your mom misses you so much or we're sorry for everything. But mostly it was that same short, desperate line on repeat. Then, by total accident, I saw my mom in person. I was grocery shopping, hoodie on, earbuds in, just grabbing my usual stuff. I saw her 2 aisles over near the canned soup, and the second she spotted me, her whole face lit up, like she was about to win the lottery and cry all at once. She started walking toward me, saying my name. I turned around and walked the other way. She kept calling out, louder this time. I ended up slipping out the fire exit near the bakery just to get away. 2 minutes later, I got a text. Can we please talk just once? After that, it felt like they were everywhere. Not in a creepy way, but suddenly they were showing up at every family event again. Cheryl's birthday? They were there. Lila's graduation? They showed up, smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong, like it was all water under the bridge. I started skipping things just to avoid them. Lila got pissed at me for missing her grad dinner, said I was being petty, but then she admitted my mom cornered her in the bathroom and started crying about how she just wanted her family back. It's like I'm expected to be the bigger person, even though I'm the only one who had to actually live with the fallout of their choices. Even Cheryl tries to back me up sometimes, tells me I don't owe them anything, but I can tell she's tired of being stuck in the middle. The worst moment? Easter. Cheryl wanted to host this big family lunch. She said maybe enough time had passed, that we could all just be civil. She kept nudging me. Just come. Maybe things won't be good, but they might be less awful. I told her I'd go if my parents promised not to talk to me. Just act normal. Stay out of my space. She said she'd tell them, so I showed up. Brought a pie, because I'm not a monster, and Cheryl always says you should bring something. The second I walked in, the tension hit me in the face. My parents were already at the table. My mom was grinning way too hard. My dad stood up like he was going to hug me. I walked right past them and handed the pie to Cheryl, who looked like she instantly regretted everything. Lila tried to break the tension. Look at you being all domestic. But nobody laughed. We got through lunch. Barely. My dad kept sneaking glances at me. My mom kept trying to jump into my conversations. Then she put her hand on my arm and said, Can we please just talk? Just us. I pulled away and said, Not today. Or any day, actually. My dad muttered, You're being selfish. I said, Well, I learned from the best. Lila snorted, which definitely didn't help, and my mom slammed her fork down. She stood up and snapped, I can't keep doing this, and stormed out. My dad shot me a dirty look and muttered something about respect, then followed her. Cheryl was quiet for a moment, then started clearing the table like it was a normal Tuesday. Lila mumbled, Well, that went well, and helped her clean up. The rest of the afternoon felt like everyone was walking on eggshells. I saw my mom sitting in her car for nearly 20 minutes just staring at her phone. Eventually, my dad joined her, and they drove off. Cheryl told me I hadn't done anything wrong, but I could tell she wished it were easier. She said, They're not bad people. They just made bad choices. I said to Swana, that's not my problem to fix. She nodded and said, I know. But it's still sad. I said, Yeah, it is. Sometimes I wonder if I am being too harsh, but then I remember every birthday they missed, every school night I waited by the window for a car that never came. They've never really apologized for any of that. Not properly, not once. My mom keeps saying she was overwhelmed, that she thought I'd be safer with Grandma. My dad says he was doing his best, that he couldn't do everything, and now they act like I should be thankful they let Grandma raise me, like that was some generous act. I scroll through social media and see posts about forgiveness, and family is everything, and I just sit with the silence. Because those people, they don't know what it's like to be left behind. And honestly, all I keep thinking is, they never had to live in a house full of someone else's broken promises. I started therapy, not because of them exactly, but because I was just so angry all the time and didn't know where to put it. My therapist told me something that stuck. It's okay not to want a relationship. That I get to decide what's healthy for me. Still, sometimes the guilt sneaks in, especially when Cheryl gives me that look. The one that says she wishes she could fix it all for everyone. But I'm not a kid anymore. And I'm done pretending like I'm the one who needs to make the first move. I've been slowly fixing up Grandma's house, one thing at a time. Painted the kitchen, replaced those faded old curtains, donated all the weird knickknacks that made it feel like a time capsule. It's not fancy, it's not perfect, but it's mine now. And every so often, I catch myself saying things the way Grandma used to. Yelling at myself for leaving the lights on, getting annoyed at a leaky faucet. I miss her. She wasn't perfect, but at least she never pretended to be. Sometimes Lila drops by. We eat junk food and watch terrible movies and don't mention family at all. Sometimes Cheryl comes with groceries and complains about my lawn. And yeah, it's annoying, but I know it comes from a good place. My parents are still technically around, but it's less frequent now. They still send the same messages every few months. My mom sometimes leaves voicemails I don't bother listening to. Just last month, my dad mailed a letter. He said they're getting older, that they want to know me, that nobody's perfect, and that you only get one family. I almost wrote back, but I didn't. I know people expect a clean ending, like, I forgave them and now we're close again, or I cut them off completely and I'm thriving. But that's not what this is. It's just quiet. I get up, I go to work, I pay bills, I spend time with people who actually understand. Sometimes I think about responding, but I haven't. Maybe one day I will, maybe I won't. That's just where I'm at. So yeah, that's it. It's not a dramatic ending, but it's real. And if you made it this far, thank you. I don't know if this helped anyone, but at least it's not just living in my head anymore. And for everyone who keeps asking, why not meet up with them again? Why not give them another shot? Why not just talk it out one more time? Here's the real answer. Maybe it'll make sense. Maybe it won't. It's not just about the fact that they left. It's not just about missing birthdays or school events or all the little things other people take for granted. It's about what happened when they came back. Even then, they still made it all about them. Every message, every conversation, every plea for forgiveness. It was all about making themselves feel better. Not once did they ever ask me what it was like, what I went through, what I needed. Not once did they say, I'm sorry I hurt you. Tell me what you need. It's always about how overwhelmed they were, how stressed they felt, how hard it all was for them. But no one forced them to leave, and they didn't even try to come back. Not really, until Grandma was gone and I was all that was left. I don't want people in my life who only want me when it's convenient, or when they're lonely, or when they need to quiet their guilt. I want people who see me, who actually care about what I want, not people who twist everything around until I'm the one expected to make things right. They had years to reach out, to show up, to apologize, and they didn't. And now they want me to just let it all go, because it would be easier for them. I'm not interested in being someone's second choice, or their redemption story, or the one who cleans up their emotional mess. If they had ever truly cared how their decisions affected me, if they had ever listened without flipping the narrative, maybe things would be different, but they haven't. And honestly, I don't think they ever will. So yeah, that's why. Not because I'm bitter, not because I want revenge, just because finally I get to choose who has access to me. And right now, they don't deserve it. Maybe that'll change someday. I don't know. But for now, I'm good with where I stand.